guys, welcome back to the channel. Okay, so you may or may not know, but I have a race coming up. I will be running the Toronto Marathon on October 15th. Okay, yeah, I just checked. It is October 15th. That means at the making of this video, I'm a little over a month away from race day. So I thought I would get together with you and talk about my predicted time. Now, I'm in a bit of a pickle, and that pickle is what we're talking about today. Alright, right off the bat, my pickle is I haven't done any races. I have no races in which to predict my marathon time. And as we all know, doing something that is similar to something that we want to do is a good predictor of what we want to do. That was a very inarticulate way of saying it, but I'm sure you know what I mean. There are plenty of formulas out there to predict your marathon time if you run a 5K, a 10K, a half marathon. And obviously that prediction time gets better the longer your test is. But my last race was the Boston Marathon. That was all the way back in the middle of April. So that race, 6 months ago, has absolutely no bearing on my race on October 15th. Now, of course, there is the whole critical speed theory, and that is actually what stride data is based on, your critical power. And ultimately, or at least theoretically, that critical speed is something that you could run at forever. Like, you'd never run out of gas. You could just run and run and run. It turns out, though, that that theoretical critical speed, saying that you can run forever, doesn't exactly hold true. In fact, realistically, your critical speed is a speed that you can hold for about an hour. And that data, that critical speed, is generated when we look at large amounts of data. Where can I get large amounts of data about my runs? If you said Strava, you'd be right. So even though I don't have specific race times in which to base my future race times off of, I do have all my training data. I also track my runs on a daily basis using a couple of different things. I think I would have got this ahead of time, but I didn't. This is my Chorus Pace 3. I've actually got it hanging on my tripod, drying from my run this morning. So my Chorus Pace 3 goes with me on every run, and because all that data goes into the Chorus training labs, their Evo labs, Chorus is able to give me a race prediction, or predictions of all my different race times based on my training. We've also got this. This is Stride. This is a power meter. This goes on my foot wherever I go, at least when I'm running. So these two things are my best friends. They know exactly what I get up to at all times when I'm out on the run. So I'm relying on these two fellas to tell me what my potential is for running a marathon. And because this data, the data from my Pace 3, goes into Strava, I'm able to crowdsource other opinions, friends of friends, and see what their opinion of my race time is. So even though I don't have race results that are actually going to give me the gold standard of what I could potentially do, it's okay. I've got some other things that are going to be able to give me a good snapshot of my potential. Now, of course, you all know there's a lot of variables that go into running a marathon. There's a lot of variables that go into training for a marathon. Take the weather, for example. I live and train in Florida. It's been summertime in Florida. It still feels like summertime in Florida. But because it's been so warm, I think it's safe to say that perhaps my training times have been a little slower than they would have been if I had been able to train in a cooler climate. But saying that, do you remember the 2023 Boston Marathon? I was only able to pull out a 3:15 that day. Now, I was a little disappointed, I guess. I wanted to run under 3:10. I was thinking right around 3:10, but definitely on the south end of 3:10. I mean, 3:09.59 would have been pretty good. But I ended up running a 3:15. So while I'm not bitter about it, although I suppose that's arguable as I'm bringing it up 5 months later, it does give me pause as to assigning blame to the warm weather for perhaps my slower times. So hopefully I've learned from that. Hopefully I've learned from my past mistakes of thinking that I can run so much better in cooler temperatures than I can where I'm training here in Florida, because in April 2023, it didn't pan out that way for me. With that said, I'm still hoping for a really cool day in Toronto, but we'll have to wait and see. It could also be really hot, in which case all my race times go out the window. Because I gotta tell you, the pace that I'm training at to run a marathon in Toronto is not one that I can maintain for a marathon here in my usual training conditions. At the temperatures I train in here in Florida, there's no way that I could maintain my goal marathon pace. So perhaps the watchers do know me, and perhaps they're taking that into consideration. But with that, let's talk about my race predictions. My race predictions based on only my training data. And let's start off with Metathon. If we go to Metathon, we can see that my predicted race time is 3:14.13. That's an average pace of 7:24 a mile. Now you can see that over the last 8 weeks, my distance run has been 505.17 miles. My average pace, 8 minutes and 39 seconds a mile. Over the last 8 weeks, I've been doing speed work twice a week, but most of my volume is at a very easy pace. Could I run faster on a daily basis? Maybe. But I'm a little gun shy about injury, so I tend to run my easy runs very easy most of the time. I also want to draw your attention to the graph. You can see that I'm moving in the right direction. If we go back 8 weeks ago, it looks like my slowest time was 3:15.30. 3:15:22 right at the beginning of the 8 weeks, but my slowest time in the last 2 months was 3:15:30. Now, because of my training, I've been getting a little more specific. Over the last 8 weeks, it looks like my time is, generally speaking, coming down. Looks like I did have a low point of 3:14:21, but then I regressed a little bit and came back up to 3:14:41, then a gradual decline, and then I did run 2 3-minute blocks this morning that I'm filming this video, and that is why I had a little bit of a bigger drop to 3:14:13 based on the time of this video. And I've got to say, I think 3:14:13 is a pretty accurate representation of what I could run a marathon in. I think it's fair to say that I will start out a little faster than running a 3:14:13, but if I ran 3:14, I'd definitely be happy. At this stage of my life, that is still a Boston qualifying time, and at this race, I'm kind of working towards the 2025 Boston Marathon. However, if I do beat a 3:10, I will be using this time in order to get a lower bib number at the 2024 Boston Marathon. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to Chorus. I'm going to go up here. Where is it? Okay, here we go. Here's my Chorus dashboard. Now I've got to scroll all the way down to the bottom. Here we go. Marathon 3:12:20. 3:12:20 is predicted by Chorus. That's an average pace of 7:19 a mile. A little quicker than Metathon using all my Strava data, but still that's right in the ballpark. However, this is an area of the ballpark that I'm a little more comfortable with because having a predicted time of 3:12:20 gives me a little more faith that maybe I can run a 3:10. I don't know, but I like this a little more. Now, I do have to point out that I don't run with a Garmin on a regular basis. I do remember though that when I was wearing Garmin, my race prediction times for the marathon were always about 15 to 20 minutes faster than I could realistically run. So looking at Chorus right now, I am going to estimate that Garmin would say that I could probably run between 2:52 and 2:57. That's a total guess, but just using my experience from the years of running with a Garmin watch. Okay, let's just scroll right back up. I think we have to go somewhere else. All right, let's go over to EvoLab metrics, and I just want to see if my VO2 max is on here. Yeah, here is the VO2 max screen. Let's see if I can blow that up just a little bit. All right, so right now it looks like my VO2 max has climbed a little bit. It was 49 at the making of this video. My VO2 max, according to Chorus, is 50. And I'd love to know your opinion on my VO2 max being 50, and I'd like to know what yours is. So go ahead and drop it in the comments, but I also want you to drop in the comments what you're using to measure that VO2 max. Because again, my Garmin VO2 max was always higher than Chorus measures it. But I think 50 is a good representation of my VO2 max. I don't know why, it's not based on anything, but I like that number. I don't know. Let me just go over to one more chart. Now, this is a prediction chart of marathon times that are based on VO2 max. Now look, I know, this is just pulling data off of the internet. This means absolutely nothing until it corroborates what you want it to tell you. So if we go to this chart, and this is the closest one right here, 49.7. If I come all the way across to the marathon, 3:11:35. Guys, this chart, which is baseline fitness using my VO2 max says that I should run a 3:11:35. Guys, we're definitely moving in the right direction. But of course, everybody's different. There are individual differences. And I think this 49.7 being able to run a 3:11:35, I think that's one of those things that is based off of population data. But when it comes down to the individual, oftentimes it is grossly inaccurate. So we're going to take that with a pinch of salt. I'm going to grab my phone to look at Stride because the desktop version of Stride doesn't actually give me my marathon prediction time. Now, I should point out that I am not a subscribing member of Stride at this moment in time, and if I was, it would tell me on the desktop. But the mobile version does give me that information, so I'm going to go over, I'm going to open Stride. Let me just make sure all this data is refreshed. And I'm going to scroll down. Okay, this is important to point out. My critical power is 359 watts. Let's come down. Here it is, right at the bottom. Stride is predicting my marathon finish time to be 3 hours, 10 minutes and 35 seconds, but it gives me a plus or minus range of 3 minutes and 48 seconds. It also gives me the wattage that I need to run a marathon at if I want to achieve these times. And it says here that's 319 watts. And if we scroll back up, remember, my critical power is 359. If we take 319 divided by 359, that tells me that my marathon power is about 89% of my critical power. Now, this 89% of critical power, this is pretty important because studies have shown that elite runners will generally run about 96% of their critical speed in the marathon. Now, that goes way down as runners take longer to cover that distance. So slower runners are going to use a lower percentage of their critical speed than elite runners. So remember, elite runners are running in the 205 to 2:20 range. So for me, all the way back in the 3 hour and 15 minute range, I'm going to be using a much lower critical power or critical speed to cover that distance. And that accounts for the 89% of my critical power. I think it may even be a little less than that, but 89% is a good way to go. I think I'll probably be running between 310 and 320 watts for the Toronto Marathon, but I'll just have to wait and see. Now remember guys, this is just my individual interpretation of this data, so I don't want you looking at your stride data and seeing that I am running a certain number of watts and think that translates to you. This is absolutely individual. Your stride could actually indicate a lower wattage, and yet you could run much faster than me. Oh, there is one more thing I wanted to show you, because I am wearing the Apple Watch Ultra, and I wear this all the time. This is my daily driver. I do wear it out when I run, and I track my runs on this. I usually just update my data to Strava using Chorus. But because I do wear this all the time, the data gets put into the Apple Health app. So that's what we're going to take a look at right now. And I want to show you this because the data is quite different. Now, I am going to show you this first thing. It says my cardio fitness is high. 61.1 is my VO2 max according to Apple. Do I think this is accurate? Absolutely not. So 61.1, if we go over to that chart again and we look, let's see, 60.2. If I had a VO2 max of 60.2, I should be able to run a 2:43 marathon. My friends, that's not going to happen. So guys, I want to hear from you. As I do before every race, I want to hear from you what your predictions are for me to run. Like my last couple of races, I am going to make my goal exactly the same, even though it seems like with every year that passes, I get a year older, and I think me getting older has a negative effect on my race performance. I'm not a scientist, but I do see some correlation. It's going to get more and more difficult for me to maintain these times that I'm trying to get to. Saying that, I'm still going to go for that 310 being my A goal. And when I say 310, I mean 309.59 or less. I'm going to make 315 my B goal and 320 my C goal. 320 is my Boston qualifying time. So if I get that, I'll be happy. And of course, I reserve the right to moan about things even if I am happy. Now it's your turn. I want to hear what your race plans are. Do you have any races coming up in the next couple of months? If you do, let me know in the comments. And with that, it's Matt B. This has been, I don't know what this has been. This has just been me going on about my race predictions based on pretty much nothing. But if you like that, then give this video a thumbs up. All right, be kind, be happy, run well. See you in a couple of days.